Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood doc here, and it is time for initial assessment for this week. I've only got one book, but it's an indie one, and it's pretty interesting. I just read it. It is Juvenile, issue 1 of 5, written and illustrated by Jesus Orellana. So let's go ahead and talk about it. All right, so this is a story where we have a bunch of teenagers, and the world has pretty much blown up because of not necessarily nuclear war, but because of war. And then all of a sudden, all the teenagers started dying off. They got sick, and it would start out with a headache and some migraines, and then there would be voices in your head, and then you would die. And so the adults of this world have all said, we've got to find a way to save our children. We might have messed them up, but we've still got to make sure that we have a future. We have something to work with. And in this, they've created pretty much prisons for these kids. They are hospitals. They're not prisons. But as somebody who's worked in psych hospitals for almost 20 years on and off, it's more like a prison. They give them medication, and it's possible that if you skip one dose that you might die. But this medication also helps them live. But you get the backstory of a character named Max in this book, and you have to dig a little bit deeper, but at the end of it, it's almost like he's got telekinesis. I'm not going to go into it any further than that, but something happens and he drops a particular item, and before it can fall through a crack, then he picks it up, and apparently with his mind. Now, one of the other characters sees this happen, and she's kind of like, what is going on with the new guy? But I really like the thought process behind this book and the premise behind this book, because you can go so many different places with this. You could go that all the kids are pretty much X-Men, and that the medication is making them so, but it's also keeping them alive. You could also go the direction that maybe some of these kids develop these powers, and eventually it might be a genetic thing that is going to allow them to survive without this medication, without this hospitalization, this forced hospitalization and institutionalization. So there's a lot of different ways that this could go. Once again, Image hits it out of the park. The artwork and writing, like I said, is by Jesus. And it's pretty good. It's cartoony. Kind of reminds me of, I think it was Gabriel Hernandez who did the refresh a couple of years ago of, what was it, Little Nemo? So it's got kind of that vibe to it to me. It's fluid. His lines are fluid more so than a whole lot of cross-hatching and detail and things like that. But it's still an Americanized comic. It's not more like manga than some of the books that I've read lately. So I think that it opened very strongly, and I'm definitely going to be checking it out because it's only a 5-issue mini. But if you like stories about growing up, dystopian futures, things of that nature, then this book is going to be right up your alley. And kids, having to learn to survive in a distant world and a different world than our own. A world that was destroyed, the status quo was destroyed through violence. And our world could easily be done that way. But you know what? A lot of different countries have had nuclear weapons and nuclear capabilities for many, many years. And that doesn't mean that they've all let it fly, because they realize the implications that if everybody lets loose with nuclear weapons, it's going to be nuclear winter and everybody's going to be dead or mutant zombies. So you can't really say, oh, well, this is a morality tale about what happens when you get war hungry and you start dropping bombs everywhere, because that's not what this story is trying to tell. This story is a story about kids trying to grow up in a time of adolescence, which is difficult enough as it is. But they're also trying to survive simply, and they're trying to understand why they are who they are and what their future may hold. So I have to say that was a very interesting book. And I just happened to pick it up at the shop yesterday, and it was kind of a fluke. I said, I need a new number 1 to talk about on initial assessment. So did you guys pick this up? If you did, what did you think about it? Do you think that it's something that everybody should check out? Do you think it's a niche book in a niche market? Or is it something that you are going to be hooked on at least through issue 2 to see where the story is going? All right, guys, thanks for joining me again. Have a great night, and we'll catch you in the next video.